Hey, friends, I'm Otis Gibbs, and this is my buddy Mike Bubb. He's going to talk about his friendship with the great Tom T. Hall.
Well, let me just preface that by saying I became a big Tom T. Hall fan after I moved to Nashville. I didn't really know much about him or his music, other than I'd seen him on TV, of course. And everybody knows Old Dogs, was a major pop hit. But my roommate, Terry Eldridge, was a huge Tom T. Hall fan. He knew all the music, but he especially liked the way the music was played with Bob Moore on bass, because I was his bass idol, and became mine as well. Eventually, I made this mixtape, like a tape of all Tom T. Hall songs, a cassette that I would take on the road. And we were down at Earl and Louise Scruggs', I think it was their 50th or 60th wedding anniversary, at a little bar that Gibson owned down on Lower Broadway. It's gone now. We played there. There was a bunch of people over there, as you can imagine, including Jimmy Martin, who showed up completely plastered. And that's a story in and of itself. But in walks Tom T. Hall. And I'm like, man, I can't believe Tom T. Hall's here. And I had seen him around once or twice. He'd come to the station inn to see certain shows, and he'd be sort of in and out. They'd shuffle in, shuffle out. Anyway, I went up to Tom T. and I said, Tom, I have this tape that I take on the road with me everywhere. And I said, it's all your songs that I put on a tape. And I said, I'd just love to have you sign the cover of it if you don't mind, And he's like, what is it? And I said, well, it's a tape that I made of your songs, like a collection of your songs that I made off your records. I said, it's in my truck. It's right out here on the street. I said, I'll be right back. So I get the J card out of the thing, and he says, to Mike, ride easy, Tom T. And I just cherished that, That was the first time I really had any interaction with him. And then later on, I got recommended to play on a thing down there for Miss Dixie. They had a gal that was working for them down in Florida. I don't know if she was a housekeeper or just a friend or something or another. But anyway, they liked her singing, and so her name was Nancy Moore. So they decided they're going to make a record on her. And they pieced it all together, one instrument at a time, in their studio upstairs in their house. They had, at the time, kind of a primitive studio setup that Tom tinkered with. Because previously he had a studio down at the end of down in his barn, down by the gate of his place. And then before that he had a studio called the Toy Box that he cut a couple of his records at in Franklin. And anyway, so I played on this record, and that sort of began my sort of friendship with them, was that I got to know them through doing that session. And then my friends, the Gibson brothers, were there one time. They were staying with them down there. And they invited me down for lunch. I was like, well, I'm going to miss this. So I go down there. And they had these notebooks that had all of Tom T's catalog in them, lyrics, and just, probably 2,000 songs in these couple of big binders, So I opened up one of these things. I said, you guys know this song? This is a great one, And I took a guitar and I started singing a little bit of it. They couldn't believe how many of these songs that I knew just by reading the lyrics, And that, I think, for some weird reason, impressed them. I don't know, And so I got on their short list of people, and became friends with them that way. And Miss Dixie, actually, I told her, I said, I'm looking for songs to record. If you guys have anything, maybe set me up with, some songs, and I'll give them to Dell to listen to. She gave me a whole, those little zippered cassette trays that you used to be able to carry cassettes in. She gave me a whole tray of those cassettes, filled with cassettes of their songs, original songs. And we didn't record any of them, but there's a couple of really good songs in there. I got to find that. I think it's in my storage unit somewhere, but they're just like home demos of Tom T singing these songs, yeah. The year that I got married, which was 2000, we were hemming and hawing about where to get married, this and that, and my wife, or future wife at the time, was at Bean Blossom. And Tom and Dixie used to go to Bean Blossom every year there for a little while. Because when he retired, he kind of really went into the bluegrass world. He became sort of a philanthropist for bluegrass music. Anybody could record in their studio for free, as long as you recorded one of their songs. It's really all they required of you. And you had to use their engineer, They were just so generous in that way. Like they just, his last big hit was Little Bitty for Alan Jackson. And Alan Jackson, he said when he heard this song, didn't think much of it, but he said, then my daughters kept singing, play that Little Bitty song, Daddy, And that's when he knew it was a hit, because his kids loved it, and he'd play it and they'd sing along. And so that's why he decided to record it. Went number one, He bought Miss Dixie a really nice BMW convertible that had the license plate, little bitty, on it. And but anyway, we didn't know where we were going to get married. It's a big thing getting your wedding together. And so my future wife at the time says, "Miss Dixie, what would you think about us getting married at your house?" I'd think nothing of it. You should do it. Like she thought of no greater idea than for us to get married at her house. And so what I didn't realize was that they hadn't had any events at their house. They used to have these big open houses to raise money for different animal charities in Nashville, and she was really big into that. And then she kind of dropped away from that, and they didn't have all these events out there, but they were kind of getting into bluegrass, and they turned their kennel into a recording studio. And she welcomed us with open arms. And the times that we would go down there just sort of advance the wedding plans, there'd be people, getting the fountain going. And she had gardeners down there fixing the whole place up. She took her entire chandelier in her foyer out, took it down and polished every piece of glass on that thing and put it back up. I'm talking about giant glass chandelier, beautiful. And they did all that for us, It was amazing. And of course their house was set up for events, She said, "Now you can get tents to cover the backyard in case of rain." She said, "I'd recommend getting the clear ones, and just call Nashville Tent. They have all the dimensions. Just tell them where it's going to be and what you need." And they have it all written down there. And sure enough, they did. They're like, "Okay, yeah, we got you covered." And so that was just a great, great event to be there and at their house. And I told Tom T, I said, "Man, I want you to wear that white Kentucky traveler suit." Sure enough, man, he comes out. He's got the full white suit with the Kentucky string tie and the whole thing. It was so cool. And then we had Buddy Spiker play with his swing band, was the band that played, and then kind of turned into a bluegrass jam session after that. And it was a good time. And eventually, they used me on some other recordings down there. And then Tom T decided to make an album for Miss Dixie for Christmas. And her Christmas present was basically his last album that he made. And so these were all songs that either he had written or they had written together. And so I get the call to do this, and they want us down there. And I get another call and it says, Tom T wants everybody there 30 minutes early. So be there at 9:30, So me being sarcastic and joking around with him, I said, "Well, there better be something to eat if I'm coming that early." And which, if you ever went to Tom T's, you would never go hungry down there. They would just always have just this great spread of food and stuff. So it was just kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke to them. But we go down there, and I get down there at 9:30 in the morning, and Tom T says, the reason I got everybody here is because I want to tell you a few things. And the first one is that you're not here because you're the greatest musicians in the world. You're here because we like you. So let's go in there and have fun and make a good record." And that was it, And so, and before that I made a record. We did the remake of I Love, the kids record with Peter Cooper. And that was also a great time. We had a great time doing that down there. And all the stories that come along, that he would tell about these certain songs and why they were written or how they were written, But
he's one of my all-time favorites.
Incredible guy. His whole take on the world was just so unique, and he was country all the way through and through. I just watched a neat interview with him where they say, "You seem to live an opulent lifestyle here." And he says, "Well," he goes, "it is a nice old home." He says, "But I don't have any diamonds or jewelry or expensive cars," or he said, "I don't even have a swimming pool." So, I don't know if that would make it for somebody from Hollywood. He said, "But we like it just fine down here." So, he knew he was humble in a lot of ways, but he earned what came to him the hard way, He was a unique man and character. He'd always have some story to tell you, that you just would just drop out of the sky. One time we're down here, couldn't believe it. Yeah, one year up at the big bluegrass convention, I guess it was in Louisville at the IBMA convention. Somebody came over to me and said, Louise wants to talk to you. I said, Louise wants to talk to me? And what they had done was that Earl was up there signing autographs, and they got him set up, and there's all these people lined up, and they're getting autographs. And I had heard about this poster somebody made that was floating around up there, and it said something about the Jimmy Martin fan club, and that I was the president, and Louise Scruggs was the treasurer. Now, I didn't ever lay eyes on it, I didn't ever see it or anything. And so somebody says, Louise wants to speak with you. And I didn't even think about that. Even I don't know what it was about, So I go over and Louise, she's like, she says, what's this I hear about this poster of this Jimmy Martin fan club that I'm the treasurer of? And I said, Louise, I said, I haven't seen it. I don't even know what it is, but I have 2 words for you. Dixie Hall. I said, I think Dixie Hall is responsible for it. And I said, obviously it's a joke, but, maybe it's not a joke to you. But I said, she's the one you want to take it up with, not me. I haven't even seen it. I didn't have anything to do with it.
Dixie was a practical joker.
Yes. Yeah. She was she'd do anything to promote a song or whatever. One year she wrote this song called Clinch Mountain Mystery that Larry Stevenson recorded. And to promote the song, she put at one of the banquets, one of the lunch banquets, she had a little bag on every table that had a cut-off finger on it and something else in there, like a plastic, cut-off finger or whatever. It was just so shocking that everybody knew about that song after that. But anyway, and then I saw Dixie, and I said, hey, you got me in some hot water with Louise Scruggs. And I said, that's not cool. And she goes, oh, what are you talking about? And I said, what's this poster going around? It has Jimmy Martin fan club with her as the president, me as the president, and her as the treasurer. She goes, oh, that's just a little joke. I said, she's not taking it too humorously. And I said, every once in a while, or I said, Earl and Louise, they'll call me to do something, every once in a while for a show or whatever, play bass on something. I said, now all of a sudden I probably won't get that call anymore because of this. And she goes, oh, Louise has the greatest sense of humor of anybody. She probably thinks it's hilarious. And I go, I don't think so. I don't think she thinks it's very funny. And that was that. I never heard anything more about it after that. But maybe she had it out with Dixie on the phone or something. Who knows? I doubt it. They were old best friends,
Did you ever were you ever invited to things with Louise after that?
No, I never went to any of those birthday jams that they had at Earl's, and I would never just show up, uninvited. Well, Louise actually booked Jimmy Martin for a good while, and they were actually the people who told the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, you should get Jimmy Martin on the Circle album, because they got a lot of that sort of bounced off of Earl's ideas and connections, like because of Earl's presence, certain people would come and participate just because of the respect they had for Earl. And it's like Maybelle and Roy Acuff, John McEwen said Roy Acuff stood around with his arms crossed and listened to a couple of songs before he actually committed to doing anything with them, And that's why you hear him on the very front of the thing. He says, now, I got a, saying in the studio that put everything you've got into it the first time and get it right the first time, especially with a man who's in good voice. And to hell with the rest of them, Don't do it over and don't wear it out, basically. Let's do it one time and get it right. But Jimmy and Louise, I think, maybe somewhere along the line that, he was their old friend. But getting back to that birthday thing where I first met Tom T., Jimmy Martin showed up there, and he got on stage, and, he just starts talking about, how wealthy the Scruggses are, and, just making a bunch of comments that everybody was just like, somebody give him the velvet hook and get him off of there. remember Jerry Douglas walked off the stage. And he said, "Hey, Dobro Picker of the Year, are you too good to play with Jimmy Martin?" And he goes, "Well, I thought all you wanted to do was talk." So he came back around, got back on stage with us, and we ended up doing something, and then we got him off the stage. But Jimmy was a difficult guy to handle sometimes, you know, and especially in the later years, I think, you know, when after everybody had been through so many different things through their careers, and, you know, who knows, these old grievances these old bluegrassers have. And I just saw a thing recently where somebody posted a picture of a canceled contract, Flat and Scruggs. And I looked down at the bottom of it, and the promoter's name was Jim Clark. And Jim Clark was like this legendary guy who didn't pay bands. And, you know, Dell always said, I figured him out early. I'd go, before anybody else get paid, I'd go get paid. Because he notoriously couldn't pay, you know, as the weekend wore on, there was less money to be paid out to everybody. And it said canceled right on it. And I said, I have a feeling that, you know, there was a kerfuffle about getting paid, you know, to be there. So, but I'm sure that they just had some kind of old grievance or impatience with each other, basically. Well, Dixie loved Jimmy Martin. They loved him. And she said, I want to buy him the reddest shirt that I can find. And she bought him this super red shirt, fire engine red, that he wore almost on every show after that. I think they had her record at their studio maybe, or came and sang on somebody's record or something. Well, Jimmy became sort of the face of Bean Blossom after Bill Monroe died. And he would have a different guest every year. And so one year was Tom T. Well, you got to put yourself in his shoes, Tom T's shoes, you know. First of all of his contemporaries are gone. You know, the people that he made music with, and, you know, all of his friends basically were down to just a very few, you know. And that's not to say he didn't have a lot of people that just loved him and adored him and would be around him, but he became kind of reclusive. But I also heard that he had a bit of dementia, you know. He started kind of losing it a little bit. And the lady that was taking care of him, her sister is a good friend of mine. And so I kind of got the inside scoop early on what happened before it kind of went out, you know, to the public like that. Yeah, it's just unfortunate to see somebody who's so smart and strong like that. But I also heard that his brother Hillman went the same way. And I don't know if that's true or not, but he's the one that wrote Pass Me By, big Johnny Rodriguez hit. And I heard that he also took his own life. So, but, you know, it's hard to get in somebody's head like that if you don't. I mean, I've never been, that I know of, that depressed or ever had those kind of suicidal thoughts. You know, it's just so tragic in one hand and selfish in one way, but in the other, you know, maybe for him it beat the alternative, which was, you know, he saw his life he saw the light at the end of the tunnel, you know, and maybe he just sort of advanced the travel a little bit. You know, it's hard to know. It's hard to say right or wrong. It's not for us to question, I guess, you know. Unfortunately, death is only bad for the people that remain, you know. That's who it hurts more than anybody.